In the last session we had reached this stage. So let me minimize this so you get an overall picture. Now what else can we do? When you look at these two classes, immediately you think, okay, here we can use generalization. Yes, so let's create a parent class. Creator, no, stat. Yes, stat. And we say that creator stat is a type of stat and reviewer stat is a type of stat. Okay, and now we can take it up. Yes, and we can delete this. And here we want it, we don't want it as two independent, this one. So let's go right button, click on the generalization, line style, and let's say tree style horizontal, no, not horizontal, vertical. And this also we make it as vertical, so it will come like this. Okay, now here number of questions approved, rejected will go up. So let's add these two attributes here. Number of questions no, not added, approved, and number of questions rejected. These are common to both. So let's take it down. So which means from here we can delete off or remove these two. Approved and rejected. And from here we can delete both. So if there are no attributes, can we delete off this class itself? No, ideally you should not, for that reason. Because imagine when you're coding, it actually makes sense to say reviewer stat, right, rather than just stat. So let's leave it as it is. And if you notice, the same set of, this one is coming here also, subject question stat, and we can say this is again a type of this, and tree style vertical. Now does this make sense? Because now this expert cannot have subject question stat, which is what this setup will do. What we will have to do is create another class in between and say expert stat, and these two are different types of expert stats, and expert stat is a type of stat. Now when we do this, now we can say expert contains expert stat, right? Now does this make sense? Subject question stat is a type of stat which belongs to subject. And we can remove these attributes. We can remove approved and rejected. By the way, when it comes to expert stat, there is something else also required. Periodically the expert will be paid incentives based on these stats. At the beginning of each period, the stats have to be reset. But at the same time, we don't want to lose the existing stats, right? So we will require two attributes: effective from and effective up to, or just say to. Effective from, effective to, and let's say these are dates. Okay, and most importantly, now this would be abstract. Yes. So if you go here at the bottom, you have tabs details, and here we make it as abstract, right? So the name is in italics. Similarly, expert stat would also be abstract. Only the creator stat and reviewer stat would be concrete. Now, what else is required? Since we have defined this or identified these interfaces, it makes sense to define the interface operations. Also, what we can do is we could have different teams working on this part, one team, and the HRMS access by another team, and messaging service by another team. And the only way in which we can ensure that the system works when we combine all of them is by making sure that this interface is stabilized. Okay, so that is possible only once we identify the operations. Now, what are the operations that will be required? So let's go back to our sequence diagram to see where is our analysis model. Manage expert, sequence diagram. Now let's look at what is the messages that are coming to HRMS. Get employee list, right? So get employee list is the response. So IHRMS should have one operation, and that is get employee list. Parameters would be what? Parameters would be subject name. Type would be string. Direction is in. Return type would be what? Return type, it will return a list. So this would be the interface. There is as such nothing else that is being got from HRMS access, or at least we can't think of anything else. Anyhow, when as we keep developing, it might get additional responsibilities as well. Now, when it comes to iMessaging service, what are the operations? Let's again go back to the sequence diagram. Send assignment. Boundary class has mapped to the subsystem. So the responsibilities of the boundary class will become the responsibility of the subsystem. So send subject assignment. So send subject assignment. Send subject assignment. What will be passed as a parameter? we need to pass the subject. Let's say sub, which is of type subject expert, for personalizing the message. So expert, and will it return anything? No, not required. So that is the responsibility of the iMessaging service. So don't be in a hurry, take it step by step. You are still learning, so take baby steps. Make sure you understand each step, what you are trying to achieve. Are these classes cohesive? No. They still have, from a responsibility point of view, they are taking care of two different aspects, right? They will have some operations related to, let's say, these attributes. You will have get coverage, is active, is enabled, get minimum question required, change status, something which is related to the abstraction itself. But you will also have operations related to database. So since you will also have operations related to database, this will not be a cohesive class. So what we need to do is split this class, or what we can do is define two separate interfaces for this. One which contains only the database operations, and one which contains only the abstraction related operations, and let this realize both the interfaces. We could go like that, or what we can do is create two separate classes, one the existing one and another one which contains database related operations. So let's create a class, let's call it as DB subject, and let's move this dependency to the DB subject. Similarly, DB expert, let's move the dependency to the expert. What the DB subject will do is take care of the database operations. So expert manager, let's say it asks the DB subject to get a particular subject. The DB subject will in turn do some magic and return a subject to the expert manager. So DB subject will create an instance of subject and return it to the expert manager. So expert manager will also depend on subject. Similarly, expert will create an instance of expert, DB expert will create an instance of expert and pass it back to the expert manager. What is this? This should go down. What we can do is move it like this and make this as line style, tree style horizontal, and tree style horizontal. Let's not spend too much time on this. So we have got this in place. Now again, we'll take this magic that it is doing, separately. But important thing is now the subject takes care of only the abstraction related aspects, and DB, subject and expert, take care of database related operation. That is one aspect. Let's zoom in. Okay, now if you look at expert form and expert manager, expert form would be running on the PC and expert manager will be running on the server, right? So that means here at this point there is a communication across a network. So which means the expert form not only has to take care of its own responsibility but also should have the intelligence or the code necessary to figure out where the expert manager is running, how it has to be contacted, what protocols to be followed, all those kind of things. So which means again this class is not cohesive. So what we can do is to keep it simple, we can just say finder, right? Create a separate class. Now all the responsibilities with respect to communication with the expert manager on a remote location, we assign it to the finder, and the expert form will depend on the finder. So that is what we have achieved. Now what about the attributes of expert form? As I mentioned, this would be the GUI attributes, radio buttons, checkboxes, labels, and those kind of things. This can be designed as a wireframe or GUI prototype and left it as it is, so that the programmer can take care of it, or we can actually model it using the GUI prototyping aspects of enterprise architect. But since it is not part of UML, I'm not going to get into that. That's enough for now. Let's take it forward in the next session. Bye for now.